He said he was a businessman. Then I found the real files on his laptop. Before I tell you what I saw in that folder, let me ask you something first. Have you ever thought you truly knew someone, only to realize, in one quiet, terrifying moment, that everything you believed might have been a lie? Have you ever stood in the middle of your own home, heart pounding, breath shallow, eyes locked on a screen that shouldn't exist, and realized the person you loved wasn't just hiding something, they were hiding who they really are? Because that's where this begins. Not in a courtroom, not with handcuffs, but in a living room in downtown Toronto on a Tuesday night with a laptop that wasn't supposed to be open. It was almost midnight. The rain had just started tapping softly against the window panes. I'd gotten out of the shower and noticed the faint glow of Elijah's MacBook on the dining table. He was in the bedroom brushing his teeth. I shouldn't have touched it, but something pulled at me. Not suspicion instinct, a quiet little whisper in my gut that said, "Look." Elijah and I had been living together for 8 months. He was charming, generous, the kind of man who always paid for dinner, remembered the names of my coworkers, brought home flowers just because it was Thursday. He worked in finance, private equity, he said, but never went into too much detail. I didn't push. Love makes you trust without asking for receipts. But that night, I opened the laptop. The screen had gone to sleep, but not locked. I moved the trackpad, and the desktop popped up instantly. Dozens of folders, mostly boring, until I saw one, tucked in the corner, TRB Investor Docs Final, zip. I clicked. Inside were files with names I didn't recognize. ID scans, bank account statements, passport PDFs, dozens of them. Some Canadian, some international. But one stopped me cold. A scan of a driver's license. Ontario. Photo of Elijah. But the name wasn't Elijah. It said Eric Dalton. At first I thought maybe a mistake. Maybe an old name. But then more files. A contract from a property deal in Vancouver. Wire transfers. Photos with different women. One of them looked like it was taken in a villa in Tulum. I didn't know what to feel. Anger hadn't arrived yet, just ice. Cold, crawling numbness. I heard him laugh from the bedroom, a sound I once loved. Now, it felt foreign, like it came from someone else's life. I backed out of the folder, closed the screen, and walked to the kitchen like nothing happened. My hands were shaking when I reached for a glass of water. I couldn't drink, couldn't breathe right, because in that moment, something inside me split. The woman who believed she knew who she was with, and the woman who had just glimpsed a stranger inside the man she kissed every morning. I didn't sleep that night. He wrapped his arm around me like he always did, and I laid there, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I remembered every time he told me I overthink, every time I apologized for asking too much, every little moment I gave him the benefit of the doubt. By sunrise, one thing was clear. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Not without understanding who the hell Eric Dalton was, and why he had Elijah's face. I called in sick to work, spent the next 10 hours digging, searching public records, reverse image searches, old LinkedIn profiles, burner emails. I copied the entire folder onto a USB drive, while he was out meeting a client. That night, I didn't speak much, just nodded, smiled, let him pour wine, and tell me how his day was. And when he kissed me goodnight, I kissed him back. But in my head, I wasn't in love anymore. I was building a case. So let me ask you again. If the person sleeping beside you tonight turned out to be someone else entirely, what would you do? Would you run, or would you stay long enough to watch them fall? He had 3 phones. I didn't notice it right away, because the one he always carried was sleek, matte black and looked like every other high-end smartphone on the market. But a few days after I found the folder, he left for a business retreat in Quebec City. While packing, he pulled out a small duffel bag from under the bed. It flopped open just long enough for me to see the glint of a second phone, older thick case, the kind that made calls but didn't leave traces, and beneath it, a third. That one looked international. After he left, I tore through the apartment, not like a hurricane, but surgical controlled. I knew what I was looking for now: discrepancies, fake names, devices, keys to stories he never told. I found the second phone in the vent behind the bathroom cabinet, hidden inside a Ziploc bag, and with it a prepaid SIM card labeled with a Montreal number. When I powered it on, there were no messages, just a single photo saved in the gallery. Elijah, no Eric, standing beside a woman in a red dress outside a Bentley dealership. She was kissing him on the cheek. The timestamp: 2 weeks ago. I didn't cry. I copied everything. I uploaded the image to Google Lens. I matched her face to a corporate directory in Vancouver. Turns out she ran a foundation with ties to several shell companies that had the same address as Elijah's supposed fund. This was no ordinary lie. This was architecture. This was scaffolding around an empire of deception. I reached out to a lawyer I knew from my work in PR, someone who dealt with white-collar crime cases. I didn't say much, just sent the folder, the SIM number, in a single line: "I think I've been living with a con man. Can we talk?" The next morning, he called me with a voice that was too calm. "Julia," he said, "this isn't just a lie. If what you sent me is real, this man could go to prison for a very long time." That's when the panic hit, because part of me stupidly still wanted it not to be true. Still wanted someone to tell me I misunderstood. But I hadn't. I saw what I saw. And now, someone else saw it too. From that point, I knew I wasn't just living with a liar. I was living with a fugitive in disguise. And I had to play along until I was ready to burn it all down. He came home that Friday with a bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon and a bouquet of sunflowers. I smiled, played my part. The USB drive with all his secrets was now hidden inside a hollowed-out candle jar beneath the bathroom sink. I had memorized every file, every transfer, every false name, and yet I still served him dinner like nothing was wrong. "Babe, you've been quiet lately." "Work okay?" he asked, setting down his phone. "Just a lot of client drama," I said, my fork pausing midair. "You know how it is." He nodded and poured wine. The way he looked at me, you'd think we were still the perfect couple, but his eyes were slower now, like he was watching for something. A crack in the mask. He felt it. He just didn't know how close I was to tearing it off. I had set up the dinner with one goal: to make him talk. Not confess, but slip. People always do when they believe they're in control. So I brought up travel, mentioned a friend's wedding in Whistler, hoping it'd trigger a memory he'd have to lie through. Instead, he leaned back and smiled. I love that place. Took a client there last fall. One of the best weekends of my life. Except I had a photo in that hidden folder. Same weekend, different country. He was in the Cayman Islands with the woman in the red dress. I didn't flinch. I smiled back and asked, "Was the weather nice?" He raised his glass. Perfect skies. The rest of dinner played out like a movie I'd already seen. I asked about his work. He spun the same vague stories. Talked about investors, liquidity, expansion. All sound, no substance. He still didn't know I had the blueprints to his illusion. But I had a new problem. I was starting to enjoy it. The performance. The game. Watching him weave lie after lie while I tucked away the strings. It scared me. Not because I was pretending, but because I was starting to become good at it. After dinner, he went for a shower. I sat on the couch, scrolling my notes. Timeline, 3 years of aliases, 6 major investors. At least 4 different cities with forged tax IDs. He wasn't just a liar. He was a walking Ponzi scheme in designer shoes. I got a text from Daniel the lawyer. Got something. Need to talk. No phone. Meet tomorrow, I replied. Coffee shop on Spadina, 9 a.m. Bring everything. The next morning, the wind in Toronto bit through my jacket like small knives, but I was too full of fire to care. Daniel was already seated, laptop open, expression tight. I've seen scams before, Julia, but this is a web. Your boyfriend, if that's even what he is, isn't working alone. He turned the screen toward me. I saw names, corporate registries tied to Belize, Seychelles, and surprisingly, Newfoundland. At the center, one company, TRB Strategic Holdings. Same folder I found on his desktop. Daniel tapped the screen. This company's been red flagged before, but never proven dirty. Until now. Your files give us a start. So what happens now? I asked. We take it to someone who can act, but not the police. Not yet. This goes federal. My stomach dropped. Federal, like RCMP. He nodded, like organized crime. I sat back, breath catching. A week ago, I was a girlfriend planning weekend trips. Now, I was holding the fuse to something explosive, and I had to decide, do I light it? Daniel gave me a burner phone. From this point on, don't text me. Don't call. If he suspects anything, you're at risk. These people don't just lie. They erase problems. That night, I lay beside Elijah Eric, whatever his name was, and wondered if he'd already guessed. His breathing was steady. His arm draped over me like always. But I felt it now, the chill behind the charm, the silence in the spaces where truth should live. I closed my eyes and made a decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to warn him. I was going to finish what I started. And when the curtain finally dropped, I wanted to be front row when his empire collapsed. The first domino fell on a Wednesday. Elijah had just left for a fundraiser dinner in Yorkville. I waited exactly 14 minutes before slipping on my coat, grabbing the burner phone, and calling the number Daniel gave me. A woman answered, calm, clipped voice. Ms. Hartley, we received your file. Are you safe? It hit me then. How far this had gone. I wasn't just sending emails to a lawyer anymore. I was in conversation with people who used terms like secure extraction and controlled detainment. Yes, I whispered. For now, we need time. At least 72 hours. Can you keep him close? Keep him close. The phrase made me nauseous. But I said yes. That night, I welcomed him back home with laughter and leftover pasta. I listened to his stories. I nodded when he joked about the shady characters he deals with. I even kissed him goodnight. But in my head, I was counting down. Thursday, I received an unmarked envelope slid beneath my office door. No return address. Inside, a USB and a single note written in pen. He's been flagged by Interpol before. Never charged. You're not the first. Not the first. The words burned. Back home, I excused myself to the shower and locked the door. Plugged the USB into my laptop. More files. More victims. Testimonies. Reports. News clippings that never made the front page. Each woman told a version of the same story: romance, trust, investment. And then vanishing accounts, stolen identities, destroyed credit. One woman from Montreal, another from Lisbon, a third from Calgary who disappeared shortly after filing a report. I stared at their faces, their last known photos, their broken notes at the bottom of police PDFs. And I saw myself. Elijah knocked on the door. You okay in there? I froze. Yeah, just conditioning my hair. Need help, he joked. My voice didn't waver. I'm good. The next day, I made one final move. I called a friend who worked in media, Natasha. We hadn't spoken in months, but she owed me a favor. I need you to listen very carefully, I said. And I need you to never say my name again until I tell you it's safe. I sent her redacted documents, proof of laundering screenshots of his fake identities, transfers routed through shell companies. Natasha's voice trembled. Julia, this is huge. It's only huge if you get it published. She promised me two things: confidentiality and timing. The piece would go live Monday morning. Headlines prepared. Editors briefed. The team working with legal to protect sources. I hung up. Then I stared out the window of our condo overlooking Queen Street West. Toronto buzzed below, normal, bright, distracted. But up here, I was preparing for a collapse. Saturday came, and he was nervous. He couldn't hide it. He drank too much coffee. Checked his phone obsessively. Claimed he had deals slipping through. But I knew the signs his scent was off. The predator had sensed something. At dinner, he asked me, "Do you ever think about leaving Toronto?" I blinked. Why would I? He shrugged. Just feels like a good time to start fresh. New city, just us. It was his exit script, the same pattern I'd read about from the other women. The vanishing act wrapped in a romantic proposal. But I wouldn't bite. Instead, I smiled and said, "Let's talk about it Monday." That night, I didn't sleep. I watched him instead, his back rising and falling. The man I thought I loved was nothing but a facade now. a puzzle made of stolen parts. But even puzzles break. At exactly 4:47 a.m., I got the message. We move today. 6:30 p.m. Wait for the signal. Don't intervene. And just like that, it was out of my hands. The rain came hard that Sunday. Not a drizzle, a downpour, like the sky itself had been holding something back until now. He made omelets, poured orange juice, kissed my temple like every other morning. I laughed, said thank you, but inside my body was humming like a violin string, pulled taut waiting for the bow to strike. 6:30, 3 p.m. That was the moment. We spent the day pretending. A walk in High Park, a coffee near Trinity Bellwoods. He held my hand like we were just another couple in the city, but behind his smile, I could sense the twitch, the glitch in his rhythm. He knew something was coming. By 5:45, we were back in the condo. I stood in front of the mirror, fixing my earrings. He walked in, slipped his arms around my waist. "You're quiet," he murmured. I looked at him through the glass. "I'm just tired." He nodded. "Long week." I turned, kissed his cheek. "Let's open that wine you brought from BC." He moved to the kitchen. I followed slowly, heart pacing like a countdown clock. Then 6:31. 3 knocks on the door. Not loud, not rushed, just enough to interrupt the air. Elijah looked at me. I tilted my head slightly. "Maybe it's the super." He opened the door. 2 men, black coats, government IDs, one woman behind them in a navy suit. "Mr. Dalton, or should we say Elijah Hartley," the lead agent asked. "We have a few questions about TRB Strategic Holdings and the identities associated with your file." His face dropped. The silence was surgical. "There's some mistake," he said, but even his voice cracked under the weight of those names. "There's no mistake," the woman said calmly. "Please come with us." He turned to me, eyes wide, pleading. "Julia, what's happening? Tell them. Tell them this isn't what it looks like." I didn't blink. "It's exactly what it looks like." He stepped forward. The agent blocked him. "You set me up," he said, voice hoarse. "No," I said. "You set yourself up. I just handed over the evidence." They cuffed him, not aggressively, but with certainty. I watched as they read his rights, watched him stammer, watched the man I once planned to marry crumble under the weight of a truth he'd buried under years of polished lies. As they led him down the hallway, he looked back one last time, and I didn't look away. By 7:10, the condo was quiet again. Too quiet. I poured myself a glass of that wine, sat on the couch, let the silence stretch until it felt like part of the furniture. At 7:30, my phone buzzed. It was Natasha. The article was live. Headline: Private equity star, Elijah Hartley unmasked. As international con artist, Eric Dalton. Federal probe underway. I scrolled. Photo of him in a suit, arms folded. Paragraphs about shell companies, fake identities, the women he used, the people he bankrupted, and my name redacted as promised. I turned off my phone. No victory dance, no tears, just quiet. Because justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like an empty room, a finished glass, a deep breath after years of holding it in. The next morning, I walked past a newsstand. His face was on the front page, but no one looked twice. To the world, he was just another man who fell too fast, too hard. To me, he was a reminder that the truth doesn't always come quickly, but when it does, it comes for everything.